the manufacturers, had the opportunities to talk about their challenges, ranging from high cost of gas, high import duties on their spare parts. They also talked about the issue of smuggling of cement, across our borders that is creating scarcity, and where there is scarcity, there could be price increase. Government noted the challenges and discussed each and every one of them extensively, and we agreed that the Honorable Minister for Trade, Industry and Investment will seek some remedies from His Excellency Mr. President. For the cement manufacturers, they have agreed to have their cement price nationwide to between 7,000 to 8,000 naira per 50 kg bag of cement, depending on the locations.
Commitment of the manufacturers to enforce compliance within the sector is also very laudable. It will be the first time that the manufacturers will be saying that they will go and foresee and manage compliance within their distributorship network. I think it's very laudable. On the issue of smuggling, yes, we've actually seen an escalation of smuggling, and we engaged with the NSA, who is committed and also came up with his own program to tackle smuggling. I'm sure we'll be hearing from the NSA very soon on this.
All right, we've got Prince David Iweta joining us here this morning. He's the National Chairman, Cement Producers Association of Nigeria, talking about lowering this cost of cement. And as it is at the moment, we've seen that meeting that held. So maybe you should talk to us about how that agreement came about, and was everybody on the same page? Is that what we're going to see moving forward now?
Yes, I think the situation as presented by the Honorable Minister was a position of all stakeholders at that meeting, and it is expected to be followed to its logical conclusion. But it is the market and the people that will react, not the pronouncement as agreed by those of us that were in the meeting. Because about 4 or 5 days after the meeting, from the feelers from the field, the price of cement is yet to come down. As at yesterday, the price went up from 11,500 that we bought in Sapele Axis to 12,000 as at today. And so we think that there need to be more in-depth consideration for a future proper solution than asking just 3 persons to dictate the destiny of a major commodity as cement in a country as large as Nigeria, with only 3 producers currently. Since the project or program, which is called the Backward Integration Policy, that was put in place by the administration of the late President Yaradua, when he considered 6 companies from each of the 6 geopolitical zones to be encouraged by granting cement import licenses to crash the price of cement from 2,000 it was at that time to 1,000 naira per bag. And I think the government today is expected to do more, looking at the importance of cement being a major commodity for the 3 basic necessities of man, which is food, clothes, and shelter. Cement as shelter, for shelter, provision, is not just about the housing. The quantum of employment that cement attracts in a developing economy like Nigeria, when you look at the infrastructure development, when you look at the housing where we have over 28 million housing deficits in our country, for every apartment that you build as house, you require about 7 professionals or different artisans getting involved, from the architect to the construction, the civil engineer, to the mason, to the carpenter, to the plumber, to the electrician, to the painter, up to the laborers that carries blocks and mason, for the mason to work. These are the quantum. So as it is, we are looking at solution in helping the economy. Yes, at that meeting, one of the takeaway that the Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment brought in as in support with the Cement Producers Association of Nigeria is to encourage 6 more players into the cement manufacturing space, like it was during the backward integration of late President Yaradua was scuttled.
Why 6 more players? Are the players there not enough?
No. The players there cannot meet the demand. Today, we could say we're having about 30 to 40 million metric tons of cement being supplied to the market, under 40 million metric tons. But our position should be double that volume.
Yeah, but why 6?
Fine. Now, why
not more?
Good. Now, it ought to be more, even up to 15, 20, as much as 50, because as we speak, economy with lesser population than Nigeria in terms of Egypt, South Africa. Egypt have 51 cement factories.
How many do we have?
We have just 3.
How many players?
The players are 3.
Wait,
okay?
are you saying
no,
major players? Or
they are only the 3 names are currently Dangote, Lafarge, and Bois. Okay? But as it were, it ought to have been Dangote, Lafarge, Bois, Madewell, Reagan, Naka, Minaj, Lababidi, Gateway. These were companies that the then government of Yaradua gave licenses to import 500,000 metric tons of cement each. And this was scuttled by one of us, who is a big player, that this should not work.
What about Ibeto?
But Ibeto was also greatly affected. It came before this regime. And then Bois, because he had what was called a floating cement terminal, where they wrote a petition to the Ministry of Finance to stop all 6 that were given licenses by Yaradua's government, by the then engineer Charles Ugu, to ensure that the price comes down. Not just the license, there is an intention that the government also applied to the mining cadastral ministry, that is the Ministry of Mines, that all these 6 be granted these licenses, so that when you finish your cement import, you go to limestone exploration and be producing locally. Out of these, it was only Bois that survived the attack.
Who was attacking who?
Yes, some group wanted to have it all, but thank God, adding to Lafarge and Dangote is Bois, and that's why you see a little bit of breathing by the people. So the government should consider cement as very critical, owing to some of the factors I analyzed. Just like in the days of the General Yakubu Gowon, in the year 1977, there was what was called Cement Armada, where so many cement vessels came into this country, waiting to bet and discharge their cargo across the Nigerian ports.
Well, we've since heard the Minister of Housing threaten cement manufacturers that if something is not urgently done, he's going to prevail on the president to see how they can open the borders to bring in more cement, import cement into the country. Now, some people would say we don't know how that is going to work because part of the problem we're currently facing, and which cement manufacturers also seem to be blaming their the increase in the prices on, is this forex scarcity. We talked about how the price of production inputs are going up. Gas, for instance, is a problem, etc. When we already have a situation where forex is scarce, is this really a wise idea to say, you know what, use the current forex that is scarce to go and look for cement outside of Nigeria? How is that going to work when we see the volatility that we're currently experiencing with our foreign exchange?
Yes, two things are involved. About the year 1984, the government at that time issued or introduced what was called import license non-valid for foreign exchange. And if today some of the policies that were put in place by the past administration of the Central Bank of Nigeria, that come January 2023, every commercial bank should source their own FX. And that didn't happen. Today, every bank is lazy as rent collectors. They are not looking at encouraging exportable product finance to generate their own FX, just as state governors going to collecting allocation every month. If the banks are doing what is called real banking and going into exploring the natural resources that we have for export, all of this will not rise. But today, the banks are failing in their responsibility in funding what ought to be funded that should provide the necessary product for export. Today, we are talking about import. Nobody's talking about export. Who talks about export? It's not government.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm trying to bring it down now. We're not exporting cement. As a matter of fact, you say that the cement we're currently producing in the country is not enough. And that's what is causing scarcity,
Correct.
Thereby driving prices up. And it's even more pertinent because this is the dry season where a lot of construction is happening. And we know that usually during the dry season, the price of cement goes up. It is very difficult to come by. I mean, the competition to get it from the manufacturers is also quite high. So we're saying this in this season, but we do not know what will happen when the rains eventually come. Do you think that, as you know, as someone who's been in this business for so long, there will be changes in the rainy season?
Yes, practically there is always a demand push and demand drop when the season comes in this way. Mm-hmm. But as far as we're concerned, in Nigeria, the commodity price that has gone up hardly comes down. It is not the availability now, it's the price. Today, Nigeria ought to have double the current capacity of cement in the country as a delivery to the country. But where you have few chasing, a lot of consumers, you have this upward trend in price. And then annually, there is a growth rate for cement delivery into a country. It might go between about 3 to 5% increase, depending on the country capacity of growth. Mm. But Nigeria, I can tell you, if the prices of cement were sustained, as it were, by the vision of the government of Yar'Adua, today there will be more development and the appetite for developers to consume cement will be high. And other variables as building materials are dependent on the direction and movement of cement price. If prices of cement is going up, people will slow down, or some of them will even leave their construction site because of the price of cement that has gone up. And then when you come in at rainy season, there is not much you can do because of the weather. And so Nigeria, as it were, ought to be consuming more than what we are consuming. But because of the apparent high cost of cement, the appetite to build has dropped, and then the deficit in housing is increasing.
You are recommending that the borders be open and these people be given licenses. You didn't quite answer what you think will happen if people are to source, because you've said the banks are not exactly living up to expectations. So where precisely, or how do you think that when people source their forex by themselves at costs that could be prohibitive, how do you think it is going to eventually affect the landing cost of cement at our borders and affect the internal prices which you're hoping to crash?
Good. Right now, if you give up to 10 players, for example, cement import license, they have their strategy. I could bring in my cement and not visit the central bank for letters of credit. If I bring my product and I decide to plow it back into a short gestation period business to produce, because I have the naira on ground and I have deferred credit from suppliers of the cement, I would obviously I'll have liquidity of naira to produce commodity and export and be able to turn around and provide my own foreign exchange needs. Today, there are so much naira awash in the country that are not going into the real sector as investment. So people are quick to convert their naira to dollars and then do nothing. So we are lazy as it were at the moment. The banks are, and some of them who have amassed naira, go to the FX market, purchase the dollar for keep because of future rise in price of the dollar. So most persons right now is dollar. And there are entrepreneurs that have migrated from businesses that have moved into politics. Because today in Nigeria, the only surviving and thriving business is politics and crime. So if the government says, okay, we are bringing in more players to bring in the product, not just for hard hoc purpose, will you have a backward integration to plow back that which government has given you? Because the reason why the government of Yar'Adua gave license was for you to import, have a market share, go backward integration, to have the kind of funding window that local or international finance institution will know that you're already in the market of cement, import, you move into producing locally, and then you have a presence, and you cannot just import and stop without bringing in what you have produced from the factory.
Well, we do get your point about, the challenges businesses are going through in the country, but I mean, we cannot say that the only surviving business is politics and crime. If anybody wants to do crime, you end up in jail, period. So that's the way it is, but we understand the point you're trying to make. Let's bring in Ayo. He's got questions for you as well.
Thank you, Chamberlain. It's interesting, Mr. Iweta, that you're talking about the challenges of businesses in Nigeria and all. And I know that you have spaded this question that I want to ask, but if you will be very, very specific, speaking specifically to local production of cement, what are the challenges that is informing this increasing price? Because there are those who assume that, look, if we are producing within the country, it should be a little cheaper than normal. Are there imported components that go into cement manufacturing in Nigeria or cement production in Nigeria that is driving the cost of the commodity up?
Yes, at the meeting that was held by the three current manufacturers, which was Dangote, Lafarge, and Boa, they all came up with the same challenge of the high cost of energy. That the cost of energy have moved from about 30, 40% to 60% because they depend solely or mainly on gas. And the Nigerian gas companies, they provide or give them price on the pro rata of dollar. So when they bought raw material at about 400 naira, now is about 600 naira, based on the upward trend of the naira and dollar rate. Then the other problem that was adduced was the issue of gypsum, which is 5% content of raw material. There is gypsum available in Nigeria, but the quality is not as good enough. So they all rely on import of gypsum. And that is requiring dollar to import. And then they also talk about the cost of mining equipment. The spare parts they buy from time to time, they import. And that is also a cost based on the dollar upward trend that affects their local cost of production. But that said, I can say here for sure that so many cement manufacturers have been in the industry for many years, and they should also create an alternative avenue in developing products that they could export to be able to generate their own dollar. And if there are more players in the market, that competition will try to force down the price of cement. Where there are few suppliers and many buyers, government is also government is at the mercy of very few manufacturers. Such like holding government is jugular, that you don't have an option. But I can tell you, if government is proactive, if government is determined to ensure that the price comes down, they will issue licenses for people that have the capacity to ensure they don't visit the Central Bank of Nigeria to bring in the product. Prior to this time, when the past government, the administration of CBN, put in 43 items and made cement as number one, not having access to the official exchange rate to import cement, there is the possibility of us even importing. But there is a caveat which some of the people that do not want cement price to come down, encouraging the Ministry of Finance at that time to move the duty from 10% to 55% as it is currently. So it is a duty also that will create the high price for cement if you import. But today, for government to encourage that there is a cement price low level, there should be a zero duty at this time. In the next 1 year, 5%. In another year, 10%. A 3-year program. So that year on year, the cement price rising will not be seen. And government should monitor very closely by creating a permanent or perennial solution, by giving a 3-year program, monitoring local players such that every 3 years they introduce 6 players as they can control. So that the inflow of cement will not also distort the local manufacturers.
Well, just one more thing from me. We've just talked about the local manufacturers now, that there are not so many. And so naturally, there would also be some fears in some quarters that it's the deliberate plan of the few to come together and insist, this is the way, this is how much we're going to sell this thing. So some kind of oligarchy is created. That's something that the federal government or any government that would not want to agree with. So consequently, they said, look, if you do not, reduce the costs, then they're going to have to do something and open the borders for importation. Now, this plan that you have talked about now, these initiatives that you're suggesting, especially the intervention of government, how long do you think it'll last? Because at the end of the day, you're running a business and government is also running a nation.
Yes, like you rightly said, the government and the private sector, they are both drivers of every economy. As you would agree with me, the size of Nigerian economy is about 400 billion. And if you look at the annual budget of Nigerian government, it goes within the region of 20 to 30% of the size of the economy. So the private sector is a principal and major driver of every economy. So the government should, as a matter of importance, take into confidence the role, the activities of the private sector, giving them that liberty, allowing them to be on the driver's seat on aspects that will drive the economy, while they concentrate in the area of policy and administration.
But just one more thing. For those who are wondering, Mr. Iweta, is there an option to cement? One. And perhaps in the same vein, are there options to those components of cement production that are imported that could be sourced within the country?
Yes, one of the local alternatives is building your houses with bricks. In several economies, bricks is a direct alternative, but they have to be burnt bricks. And I remember some years back, in the early years of Olusegun Obasanjo's government, when they made a delegation to India, I remember Mrs. Is it Modupe Adelaja? You know, the daughter of the late Ibrahim Adesoya. She was in charge of SMIDA, or one of those agencies of government. And she was in that delegation. And those persons in the real estate in those countries was advising the government of Nigeria to embark on developing bricks as an alternative to building houses in Nigeria, as an alternative to cement. But I can tell you, one of the players, as of today, was in the delegation and did advise or shun down that very officer of government that, do you want to destroy my business? Why would such kind of proposal be made such that bricks should not be developed? Should that be, I can assure you that that will go as an alternative to cement. And if persons were encouraged to develop bricks into that industry, by today, there are alternatives, because bricks has its own quality, you know, in housing development. So that's one option that could be looked into if the government decides to be holistic in trying to tackle the perennial, price increase in cement.
All right, we'll look and hope that all of this eventually is sorted moving forward. So thank you for coming on this morning, Prince David Iweta.